Thank you. I think it is always interesting when people choose to join politics. Some people say there are those who join to make money. There are those who join to be known. There are those who join as a sense of self-actualization. But there are also those who join so that they could better the lot of the constituents. I believe I belong to the last category. If it was about money, I would not join politics. I would not even be defending my seat as a member of parliament. If it was about fame, then I think that I've been in positions that were more famous than being a member of parliament. If it's about self-actualization, I would not actualize that self in terms of joining politics. It would be in terms of my profession, where I have really tried to advance. I joined politics because I honestly believed, and I still do, that I can make a difference in bettering the lot of the people of Rarieda in a variety of ways, both directly and indirectly. And I've endeavored to try and do that. I have endeavored to try and make sure that in terms of representation, we would further their lot through improving their lives in various ways, just their livelihood, through bettering the sharing of resources in terms of equity and equitability, through using connections I've had both professionally and in the NGO sector, which I've had for like the last 25 years, and also just through certain policies, legislation, constitutional changes that would improve the lives of everyone else, but also of my constituents. So I joined the politics believing I could improve the lives of people, and I hope that for the last 5 years I have, and I hope that I can continue to do that. There are a number of things that I found which we have since improved on. The first one is that we have many primary schools, public primary schools, a total of 128. We also have at least 48 public secondary schools, most of which are mixed day, secondary schools. For the 5 years that I have been a member of parliament, almost 5 years, I have made sure that each of the 128 primary schools and each of the 48 secondary schools have received money for a variety of things from the CDF kitty. When I came in, there are some schools that had for the last 15 years not received anything, either because of, they were forgotten, or because of political considerations, or whatever other considerations. But I made sure that there would be equity and equitability, and each of them, you will not find a single secondary or primary school that can claim they have not received money, whether it's for construction of a classroom or administration block or a laboratory or a dormitory or, the more modern latrines and all that. The second thing that I found is that of all these secondary schools, we did not have a single tertiary institution in Rarieda. So that all these students who would sit their exams, unless they were lucky enough to be invited to some university, maybe in Nairobi or Kisumu or Mombasa or elsewhere, the rest of them would just basically idle around the constituency. Some would end up as border riders, some would end up as fisher folk, some would be selling basic wares, like vegetables and all, or tailors. So I purposed to ensure that in each ward we've started a tertiary institution. And I'm proud to say that in each of the 5 wards, each at least boasts a tertiary institution at various stages of development. We have a campus of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University in South Tuyoma ward. We have a campus of the Kisumu National Polytechnic in West Tuyoma ward. We have a KMTC in North Tuyoma ward. We have a TTI in West Asembo ward. and we have a TTC for Diploma Sciences, together with an NYS training center in East Asembo Ward. Once all of them are fully operational, they'll be able to absorb a lot of students who otherwise would not have furthered their education at tertiary or college level. The other thing that I found was in terms of bursaries. Every year, the national government gives a certain amount of money, at least on average 137 million to each constituency. But the constituency, through the board, is supposed to prioritize how much they allocate to bursaries. I purposed to increase the amount of allocated to bursaries each year, with the result that the number of students who receive the bursary overall and the total amount that is disbursed to the bursaries has increased. So I can tell you, for example, that in the very first year we came in, the total number of students awarded bursaries was just about 4,200 or thereabouts. But because of the equity in distribution, the next year it shot to 8,000, then it shot to 12,000, then it shot to about 13,000. As at present, we are looking at approximately 14,500 to 15,000 students who receive bursaries, both for secondary schools and for universities and colleges each year. Actually, this current year, we had the greatest challenge because we had 26,000 applicants who wanted the bursaries. So sorting it out becomes a real challenge. But we were able to make sure that at least those who are deserving, almost everyone else, got something. In addition to that, one of the other things we have emphasized is focus on widows and vulnerable groups. But because we cannot use monies from CDF to assist some of these vulnerable groups, we've had to innovate. And one of those innovations has been to come up with a concept called Ondoanyasi. In this Ondoanyasi, we identify widows from each ward, actually down to the sublocations. Of the 23 sublocations we have, we identify who are the most needy widows, who live in grass-thatched houses and who cannot change their dwellings. And once we do, we move rotationally, and basically using my own resources, we modestly construct for them an iron-roofed house, and then we give them the solar panels that they can use. Most of them we are also usually able to give water purifiers, and in many instances we give some seed money that they can use to start businesses. Some of them have children, some don't have children. Some are disabled, some are not disabled. But in coming in, we then do not just improve their livelihood in terms of the house. We also resolve some, basic customary issues. One of those customary issues is the belief in Luo land that a widow cannot construct a house without a male figure. So by coming in, we fulfill that myth just by being present. Secondly, some of them usually have underlying land issues. When they want to build, that's when the relatives claim that they cannot build because that land belongs to someone else. But once we step in as a member of parliament, we resolve that. So we have, to date, constructed about 76 such houses for widows at an average of about 75,000 each. Now, if you average 75 by 76, you'll find that I've spent over 5 million Kenya shillings just in constructing for the widows alone. But the need is still immense. The other thing we've done is using my prior connections, we've been able to seek funds for various women groups, for youth groups, to empower girls, through what we call, for example, the Rarieda Girl Child, which my wife, runs. We've been able to bring the talent groups within the youth, both for sports and for other activities like music. We've been able to source for other income-generating activities for the youth, like the Makiga block-making machines and other varieties of ways. So we've done a lot of all that. But one of the other things we focused on is we realized that there was a lot of government land within Rarieda, which everyone knew is government land, which was not being put to any use at all, and which was just lying idle. We have endeavored to identify any existing government land and to make sure there's an activity that goes on. We were able to identify such land in Luanda Kotieno for purposes of installation of the cold storage facility, which is on. We identified such land in Madian Center, where with the help of the Chief Justice, the retired Chief Justice, we have been able to put up a court which has been gazetted. We've put up such facilities in all the 4 tertiary institutions. We are talking 5 tertiary institutions. They were actually all put on existing government land, so we did not spend money in terms of payment. We have put a resource center both in Asembo Bay and in Madian, again in such government land. We are currently, and only this week, the headquarters of the NYS are coming to view another such facility of about 7 acres, where they will purpose to put the NYS Regional Training Center. We have used such idle land, idle public land, to establish the sub-regional offices of the KWS, which is currently occupied and operational. So we've tried to make sure that every such land is put to some use, and we've been quite successful.
Thank you.
First, in the National Assembly, there are a total of 349 members. I've realized that's like a school. And while people sometimes blame some MPs for not being able to talk in Bunge and all that, I have realized that it helps to be recognizable, so that when there's any debate, you easily catch the eye of the speaker. I can tell you, Steve, that if you are not recognizable, you can go to that Bunge every day and sit from morning to evening and try to catch the speaker's eye, and you will not catch that speaker's eye. And so there's some advantage in being recognizable. And it's an advantage that does not accrue to you only. It, by extension, accrues to your constituents, because you speak on their behalf. And when, therefore, you are heard and you are able to guys of river text, it is helpful. Secondly, I have realized that being a lawmaking body, the legal background is quite helpful, especially when you do not just have the legal background, but like myself, you have participated in the constitution-making process. Because at every turn, every minute in that parliament, you will be referring, or there has to be reference to the Constitution, to acts of parliament, to the standing orders, and I can tell you for a fact that it gives you an advantage of up to 70%. And so the fact of being a lawyer and being a senior counsel gives an advantage not just to me, but gives an advantage in terms of contribution to legislation, to oversight, and to representation. But lastly, it takes commitment to be in that august house, especially not just for technical appearances, but when it matters most. Most people usually think that what's important in that parliament is to appear when a bill is being read, and then you disappear thereafter. The real work never comes when the bill is being read, not when it's read for the second time, but when it comes to what we call the committee of the whole house. That is when, and I can tell you that whenever it comes to that stage, it's the most boring part. It is hardly ever even covered by the media. But it's where 90% of the work of Bunge is done. When you now have to sit down, sometimes for even up to 6 or 7 or 8 hours, and give contribution to each clause, suggest any amendments, oppose whatever is included which should not be included. At that point, sometimes you can have as few as 10 members of parliament for a whole day. But that's where the real work is done. It takes a dedication to be in that house at that point. I have learned to walk while chewing gum. I have learned how to be in parliament and contribute when it matters, when not to be in parliament, when you have to deal with the matters of the constituents, especially on days Parliament is not sitting, but also how to ensure that you're able to raise the issues of the constituents, even when Parliament is very busy and there's very little time to raise those issues. And on average, I think that it is not for me to say what I've contributed in Parliament. It is for those who follow Parliament to gauge. I know that there's, for example, an entity called Mzalendo.com that monitors what goes on in Parliament every day, and they're able to identify those who are active in Parliament and those who are not, and I believe they've ranked me quite fairly. But in any event, anyone in this modern day and age can just visit any website, whether it's by Google or by YouTube, and you'll be able to see what your member of Parliament has done, in this case, for the people of Rarieda.
General, now I have quite a personal question here. Some people think that you're elitist, and they argue that you are not easily accessible. Could it be that, what do you say about this allegation, and could it be that some people don't just understand you?
I am not new to such an allegation. Actually, it is not so much of an allegation currently. It was an allegation when I was first vying in 2017. And they spread propaganda that if I was elected, I would never be seen until the next election. That I was elitist, that I did not know the constituency. In fact, they even said I do not know the language. That is cheap propaganda. But I can tell you that in the fullness of time, they've been disproved, and they no longer say such things. First of all, I'm a village boy. I am a man who was born and educated in the village. But sometimes people mistake you that once you have learned in the village, you come to the city, by the grace of God, you rise through some ranks, they assume you are always born and bred in the city. I am not. I am a village boy, and that is why my attachment is to the village. Indeed, that is why I chose to run in Rarieda rather than in any of the constituencies within the city. Secondly, I think they quickly learned that I am so attached to the constituency that you cannot accuse me of being inaccessible. Let me tell you that each year we issue bursaries. Each and every occasion we issue the bursaries, and we issue them at least twice every year, I personally attend and issue directly in public, so that everyone can get to know everyone who's received the bursary and can follow up. Each year we issue checks, CDF checks, to these various institutions, and I can confirm to you that on occasion we bring them together and issue, but in most occasions we take them directly to the schools. I have usually taken those checks directly so that I have the opportunity to see what they have done with the money they were allocated earlier and to assess. And whenever they've completed such projects, I always attend to open them so that when the public come, they can also see the money that was given against the work that was done. Every other day, of all these 76 Ondoa Nyasis, I always, in 98% of the occasion, I attend in person and do the work directly with those volunteers who come. Not to mention that every weekend we have on average between 30 and 40 funerals in Rarieda, and I always purpose to personally attend at least 5. Anyone who tries to accuse me of inaccessibility and elitism is someone who only needs to talk to the people of Rarieda, and they will get a direct opposite answer. In fact, those would be the people who do not know what happens on the ground. And most of them are usually what we call, you know, the Facebook polling station commentators who sit maybe in Mombasa or Turkana or somewhere in Europe and purport to know what's going on the ground. But if you asked anybody in any remote village of Rarieda, they will tell you that, say in the last 5 years, they have seen me on no less than 5 occasions at the lowest level. So I can assure you, there is no truth in that. I do not believe it is necessary. First, because I already have officers within my office to the lowest level. from the constituency level, the constituency manager and deputy, to each ward having at least 3 coordinators in each ward who engage with people on a continuous basis, down to the location and down to the sub-location. So routinely, directly or through my team, we engage with people at all stages. This team sometimes has town hall meetings. They do have town hall meetings with specialized groups like the fishermen, within the beach management units, sometimes to the farmers, especially the ones who farm around the lake shore, sometimes to the traders, because each market also has officials right nowadays who are elected, and you engage with them, down to virtually everyone in that market. They have town hall meetings with the border groups. They have town hall meetings with the teachers, the community health workers, and many times I have engaged with those teams at the town hall level. Secondly, for purposes of the constituency development, you cannot have a proposal unless you've held a meeting at the sub-location level, and then at the location, and then at the ward level. So the things we identify as areas where we should work as CDF usually do not come from me or from my office. It comes from the people. Meetings are convened and they advertise, and the people come and say that in our case, our priority is this school, or our priority is the security, or our priority is the chief's office, or indeed maybe our priority is to find a way of improving some particular road. So a report is generated at every stage, so that by the time you're making the proposals, you have a really comprehensive report that the National CDF office uses to gauge what you have proposed. Did it come from the people? You see? So in my view, together with these extensive consultations, you do not need another layer of consultation at the ward level. You'll merely be repeating what is already there. But let me tell you more importantly, when you engage with the people on a constant basis, whether it's when you're doing Ondoa Nyasi, when you are bringing a check to a school or launching a project, or whether it's at a funeral, people nowadays are quite bold and informed. They will tell you what they want right there. They will tell you, Amollo, for us, it is this road that is neglected, or it is our school, or it is our chief's office, or whatever it is that they feel is what needs priority. They will tell you. But they will also come and tell you at home, because I have to consult with a lot of people at home. I consult with a lot of people whenever I visit the constituency and I go to the constituency office, and they come from everywhere. So in my view, you do not need an additional. But views are always welcome. That is why we are present on social media. That is why we have people present, even when I'm in Nairobi at the constituency's office, so that any view that is brought, whether it's in a town hall meeting or whether it's a walk-in, we consolidate all that, and that's what informs our agenda for Rarieda. If there's one aspect of the Constitution that I think has succeeded almost 100%, it is devolution, in terms of decentralization of resources, in terms of decongestion of the powers at the national executive level, and also in terms of bringing representation closer to the people. But different counties have different levels of success. I dare say my assessment is that counties that were previously marginalized the most have used and utilized the devolution resources the best. But counties that may not have been seriously marginalized, I think have taken devolution for granted and may not have used the monies for devolution as effectively. And I'm afraid that includes counties from Nyanza. I think that on a comparative basis, the difference that devolution has made in counties that were previously highly marginalized is much more serious than counties that were not seriously marginalized. And in such counties, they took the monies for devolution for granted and have tended to play basic politics with money for devolution rather than focus it in terms of development and benefit of the people. And yet, for that reason, There are counties, and that includes our own county in Siaya, where the people have continued to confuse the roles of the county and the roles of the national government, including the member of parliament. For that reason, you will keep hearing people complain wherever you go about some roads. Roads which are classified as county roads, but which the county has neglected, and all that the people know is that the member of parliament is supposed to be working on those roads. You will hear people complaining of water. Water, which is a basic county government function. But wherever it is not provided, the people will revert to you as a member of parliament that they are not having water and you are not helping. You will hear people complain, say, of ECDs, that we don't have an ECD, we don't have ECD teachers and all that. When the constitution is clear that ECD, construction of classroom, hiring teachers and paying them is a county government function. So there are many such instances, including security, for example, security lights, which previously as an MP you could provide with money from CDF, but which you cannot now do because that wing is decentralized to the counties. So there's still a lot of education that needs to be done. Where the counties are effective, it's really easy and helpful. Where they are not, it really makes the work of the member of parliament really difficult. But the support institution, for example, the police stations, the cells and all that, are neat and fully and properly constructed. That is something that we are still working on. We've done a lot of police stations, but there are additional ones that were gazetted, which we also intend to build. Thirdly, is to refocus on agriculture, particularly the agricultural activities that are more prominent in Rarieda. On the Asembo side, the more prominent agricultural activity is fruits. They have a lot of fruits, especially mangoes and guavas and all that. It is to ensure that those fruits bring proper income, especially by focusing on the kind of mangoes that are grown. Some people have traditionally grown the high fiber mangoes, which are not, they do not attract proper market. And we've already embarked on a program of educating the farmers to grow the low fiber mangoes, especially those that we get from Kilifi and elsewhere. On the Uyoma side is the question of cotton. It's primarily black cotton soil. And while we've encouraged a lot of farmers and they're now growing cotton, the place in terms of where to sell their cotton is still a challenge. We have a ginnery we started in Madian. It is not properly and fully functional. We are in communication with the guys of Rivertex and other guys within the national government so that we can have a situation where cotton will be grown and we'll have a ready market within and a ginnery that is functional within the vicinity. Because currently they sell their market, their cotton, to some ginnery all the way in Makueni. That is not cost effective. Moving forward, we want to refocus on the fisher folk, on the BMUs. We want to focus on the 31 beaches that we have in Rarieda in terms of the access roads. Some of the access roads have not been very good. In terms of marketing the fish, they themselves directly, so that you do not have middlemen who come and purchase the fish at very low prices and then sell to the factories at very high prices. We want to empower the BMUs to refocus and be able to have their fish, transport it and sell it at proper prices to the factories directly, not to the middlemen. So we still have quite a lot we want to do. Lastly, although water does not belong to the docket of the MP, is within the county, we have refocused through partners to ensure that water is provided to all the residents of Rarieda. We have succeeded in part, I would say to the extent of about 60% in terms of the South Uyoma, North Uyoma water supply, in terms of the West Uyoma water supply, and in terms of the West Asembo water supply. There's still a big challenge in East Asembo, which we need to refocus on. We were in communication, we still are, with the Kenya Red Cross and other well-wishers who would be willing to, to redo the piping to a bigger size pipe and for a greater reach. And that is a conversation that we intend to continue once we come back for the second time. Our first message is that is generally to Kenyans that we are in the Azimio coalition, and our competitors also have their own conflagration. There are two main conflagrations. There's Azimio and then the so-called Kenya Kwanza. The choice is obvious. The choice is in Azimio is to elect leaders, a president who is progressive and the deputy, a presidency that is reformist, a presidency that does not tolerate corruption, a presidency that is inclusive in terms of women representation and people who are otherwise marginalized, and a presidency that will take this country forward in terms of where we want to go. On the opposite side, we have a team that stands for everything that is not good for this country, in terms of tolerating corruption, in terms of not wishing to have any reform credential, in terms of facing integrity issues, in terms of excluding women from positions of leadership, and in terms of promising what they cannot deliver because they are not prepared to put it in a legal document that can be enforced. Specifically to the people of Rarieda is to thank you for having elected me as your member of parliament for the last 5 years. It is not a right, it is a privilege that was accorded to me. It is a privilege for which I thank you, and for which I request again that you give me an opportunity to serve you for another 5 years, so that we can finish all the projects we started together, so that we can perfect all other ideas that we have which have yet to be implemented, so that we can have a better Rarieda. I urge you to elect me as your member of parliament within our dominant party of ODM, even though we are in the house of Azimio. But Azimio is not just a house, it's a house, a big house with many rooms. But our focus, in order to strengthen the presidency of Raila Amollo Odinga, in order to strengthen the government of Azimio, will be to elect people who are strong on the ground, who are strong on ODM, who will stand with the party, who will defend the party, who will defend the government, and who will deliver in terms of what we require to develop Rarieda. Together, we can make that difference. Thank you.